If we play at our best, we will beat every team in this league playing at their best. So who's it on? Whose shoulders does it fall on? Ours. Let's go get it.
Welcome to JetsCentralRadio. Joe Caporoso.
Extra, read all about it. You can win anywhere if you can win here. And you ain't been nowhere if you ain't been here. Well, so hard, yeah, really, in the game, man. Same place, different faces on the train, man. New York.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Turn on the Jets Central Radio. We are gearing up for Week 2 of the preseason, where the New York Jets will have their home opener of the preseason, hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. I want to hop right into it tonight. We have a full show. Our lead guest tonight, Bart Hubbuch of the New York Post, covers the NFL, spent some time covering the Jets, the Giants. I know he was up at New England camp recently, checking out what's going on with Brady and Belichick and Tebow and all that fun stuff up there. Bart, thank you so much for taking the time tonight.
Sure, no problem.
I guess let's just start with New England, because I know you did just spend some time up there. How did their offense look? I know, with Brady leading the charge, it's always going to look efficient or effective, but more specifically, how are the younger receivers and younger tight ends who are seeing so much playing time looking right now?
Well, my view has kind of been skewed a little bit because a big chunk of the time I've seen them has been in workouts or in games against the Eagles, and who might have one of the worst defenses in NFL history, and so it's been kind of difficult, in kind of team settings and in game settings to kind of get an accurate read on what the Patriots are going to be. I know in workouts against their own defense early in camp when I was up there, it didn't look like Brady in the offense was very sharp. And then I read today that he was visibly frustrated in workouts against the Eagles, and a couple of the beat writers up there tweeted that the Buccaneers defense is not. It's not nearly as much better than the Eagles, and so you're not going to see the crispness that you saw from Brady against the Eagles. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, he's got basically an entirely new receiving core, and it's a lot of young guys and a lot of unproven guys, and Brady can obviously make do with not a very talented receiving core, but this is going to be interesting. I just don't see that. I don't think they're going to be the juggernaut that they usually are.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously a benefit to them is that they're in a division with nobody who I think is really ready to take a run at them. I mean, do you think Miami, after their big off season, is ready to really compete with them, for that division title, or do you think New England's going to be in the spot they seem to be every year, which is resting their starters week 16 and week 17 with the division title already wrapped up?
Yeah, that's how it's going to be. I mean, they still have by far, head and shoulders, far and away the best quarterback in the division, and a competent defense, I would say. They still got questions in that secondary, but it's just like you said. To me, there's nobody else in the division that's ready to step up and take it away from them. Now, having said that, I think it could be a bad division. I mean, I don't know that you'll see the Patriots might not run away with it. But I don't know that anybody else is ready to knock them off just yet. Because you got the Jets, obviously with their question and their situation, and then you got the Bills, who never seem to get any better. And then the Dolphins. I just don't know that. I just don't see the Dolphins being a big factor in the AFC this year. I just really don't. I'm just not totally sold on Ryan Tannehill.
Sliding the focus down to Florham Parker, I guess for now, up to Cortland. What are your initial impressions of the Jets' quote-unquote new regime, at least in the front office, with John Idzik at GM, with Rod Graves in the front office, no more Mike Tannenbaum? Impressions on the way they've kind of been handling the dissemination of information to the media, which I think has been a little different, than what we saw under the Tannenbaum era. And then, some of their early moves. I know Idzik really didn't have a lot of flexibility considering the Jets cap situation, but, I feel like he's come under some fire recently, some fair, some unfair, on how he handled this offseason.
I got to say, as far as the information standpoint, it's kind of obvious that he's and I think he's quote done a quote good job of this, depending on your perspective. But he's really tightened up the leaks as far as that was a front office that used to basically leak like a sieve, and you don't see that much anymore. It's kind of a one voice type situation that he's even kind of enforcing on Rex Ryan, which is kind of a sight to behold. Rex having to bite his tongue all the time, and you can see that it pains him. As far as the talent and personnel decisions that he's made, I still think it's way too early to kind of render any kind of judgment on him. I will say that, and especially considering the fact that he was handcuffed by what Mike Tannenbaum left behind, and which was a dreadful cap situation, and really kind of outsized commitments to a lot of guys that really didn't deserve outsized commitments, and so that was going to be a difficult situation for any GM to walk into. Now, having said that, that in his defense, I do kind of, the moves, I don't know that I'm been totally on board with. The Mike Goodwin one is obviously not turned out already, has not panned out, and Chris Ivory has barely been able to get on the field for, I think, one or two practices the most already, and so that's a question mark there, and I don't know, and to me, I had some quibbles with his first draft. Going so heavy defense, with the high picks, the first two picks were defense, when, this team's problem was not defense. They had a top 10 defense last year, and, this team's problem was a lack of playmakers, and for them to not really, go after the playmakers, that was kind of puzzling to me, but, he's playing the long game here, and you got to give him time to kind of settle in, but it's interesting. I already kind of sense a disconnect between him and Rex. That's just my opinion, but that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out.
So, I mean, your gut instinct, you would think that barring something, a very surprising playoff berth or maybe a strong late season run, Rex Ryan probably isn't back next season.
I would think so. The coaches don't like to go into the last year of a contract without, any kind of extension. And above that, this has been true for the NFL for, practically since its beginning, is new GMs want their own people. And, as much as I like Rex Ryan as a coach, I think Rex Ryan is a very good coach. You don't go to 2 AFC Championship games in your first 2 years as a head coach without being a good coach. But having said that, I think it might have been best for all involved if they had just, if they were going to fire if Woody Johnson was going to fire Mike Tannenbaum, to just go ahead and fire Rex Ryan too, because, it's ended up, GMs, like I said, always want their own guy, and Rex is walking into this situation where, it just doesn't have a very good team right now. It's a very young team, but it just doesn't seem to be very good right now. And it's an unfortunate situation. I think it's an uncomfortable situation for a lot of people. And, I don't know. To me, it would have been best for all parties involved to just, have gotten rid of, cleaned house completely and let, if you're going to trust a new GM, trust him to hire the coach too. And I don't know why they didn't do that, but, here we are.
So, I mean, I know we're probably still another week or two off from this decision, but do you think, as of now, we're probably looking at Mark Sanchez starting week 1, or do you think it's going to take a big performance from Geno Smith this Saturday to really kind of wrestle the spot from him? As of now, a lot of fans seem to have it in their head that, the Jets have stacked the deck in Sanchez's favor, which I think is ludicrous. But do you think Sanchez is probably going to end up being the guy just because, Geno's a little banged up now and he might just not be really ready to roll week 1, and, Rex will just be more comfortable going with someone he's more experienced with?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's exactly how I see it, playing out based on everything that's happened. I mean, I think the Jets' hope was that Geno Smith would come in like Russell Wilson did last year and in training camp and in mini camp and just kind of, open up everybody's eyes, kind of, set it on fire. And he hasn't done that at all. And he's been hurt. And And, I just think it's kind of obvious now, now that it's played out for a little bit that the guy's going to need time. And he's just going to need time to learn the system and learn how to be an NFL quarterback. I mean, you're talking about, I can't imagine how many snaps he took under center in his entire career at West Virginia. You probably count them on one hand, if that. And so, that's an adjustment right there. And so I just don't think they feel he's ready. And so I think, Sanchez, because he knows the system, probably gets the nod early on, just because, like I said, Geno Smith hasn't really, come in and set the world on fire. And so, but I think, I don't think Sanchez's hold on the job is very long. I mean, I certainly not, the entire season, because, at some point it's going to want to get Geno Smith in there, and is going to want, because, that's their future, and Mark Sanchez is obviously not their future, and they're going to want to get kind of get a move on, get the ball rolling.
What do you think a ceiling is for this team this season? What do you, let's say best case scenario, Rex puts out another, top 10 defense, Ivory manages to stay healthy, and they can run the ball a little bit. What do you see their ceiling being at this year?
Well, I hate to come off as, pessimistic. I mean, I know the fans don't want to hear it, but I just don't think it's a very good team. And, and I hate to say it, I hate to be the wet blanket, but it just looks kind of like a 4-12 team to me, or even worse than that, maybe 3-13, or I think maybe 5-11. It's just not a good roster, and I think you can really blame Mike Tannenbaum for that, because just building depth was never a priority for him, and that is a surefire way to be just stuck in a rebuilding phase, and and it seems obvious to me that Idzik is completely different than that, and has a completely different philosophy, and I agree with that. You got to build depth, and that involves getting young, but you can have some depth there, and the Jets just did not have any depth, and it's still the case in a lot of positions, especially on offense, and it just doesn't look very optimistic for. Sorry to say, but I think there is hope down the line, though. And like I said, Idzik is playing a long game here, and I think that if he hits on these draft picks, and then I think that they're going to be in good shape, maybe going down the line, in 2 or 3 years. It might be a much better situation.
All right, Bart. Well, we appreciate you taking the time, and we'll be following you all year. Everyone could follow Bart on Twitter at Hubbuch NYP. Every now and then you get an entertaining debate going back and forth with some different bloggers out there. So everybody, make sure to give him a follow. And thanks again for stopping by.
All right, take care.
Previously on Jets Central Radio.
And we are back with former New York Jets general manager Mike Tannenbaum. Looking at Mark Sanchez and looking at the decision to roll with him and extend him and give him the contract to really be the guy for a few more years, heading into the this past season. Outside of on the field, from what you saw, in 2009 and 2010 when he really picked it up down the stretch run, was it things that you saw around the building and off the field, and how he handled himself in the off season that helped kind of push you towards making that kind of financial commitment to him?
Sure. He was in our building every single day. He was a winning quarterback over, the first 3 years of his career, when we made the decision. And, again, when we had made the decision before the 2012 season, we just came off a year where, although we finished 8-8, we had 32 touchdowns, 26 throwing, and 6 rushing. We felt like his one flaw was, too many turnovers, and thought, we had a plan in place to correct that. Obviously, that didn't work out as well as we had thought, in the 2012 season. So knowing that he was homegrown talent and had the appropriate work ethic and won a lot of games with him, that's why we made the decision. And, obviously based on how we played last year, it's a decision obviously that hasn't worked out so far, but, I think Mark's career is far from over, and, there's, I think, a lot of good there. Obviously, the turnovers are going to be something that he has to work on, and I'm sure Park knows that, and I'm sure Coach Morningwig's working on that with him every day.
Well, How about that? The previously on installment. It reminds me of the beginning of the episodes of Lost, where, previously on Lost, and they go through everything from the previous week. I tell you, the people on that switchboard, every week they got a surprise for us, and I like it. All right, so we got a couple more minutes before we're going to have John Caputo of Jacksonville Jaguar coverage fame going to stop by and help us preview week 2 of the preseason this week. He's going to be on in about 5 to 10 minutes. He writes over at boldcitybrigade.com, which covers the Jags. So as we all know, Jets, Jaguars, MetLife Stadium this Saturday night. Want to just do some quick thoughts on the Jets preseason debut against the Detroit Lions. A few things I liked, a few things I didn't like. What I did like was the wide receivers and the tight ends, particularly the tight ends. Very encouraging game from Kellen Winslow Jr. and Jeff Cumberland. Winslow had a nice catch and run where he looked plenty healthy and athletic and took a huge shot at the end and was able to get up and, play a bunch of reps. I think he might have played 25, 30 reps, which was surprisingly high amount, actually, for him in week 1 of the preseason. Cumberland had a 27-yard touchdown, did a real nice job getting down the seam, and, Rex Ryan pointed some film out to some of the beat writers this past week about how he's really came along with his blocking. Cumberland's a guy I broke down in the film room over the offseason, and last year the tape really showed more of a spot starter than a full-time guy. But, guys get better. And similar to a guy, like Clyde Gates, who seemed to have improved a lot over the offseason, Cumberland looks to be another one of those guys. So the Jets might be able to, have a nice little duo there with Winslow and Cumberland. Obviously, they need Winslow to stay healthy. They need Cumberland to be consistent. But especially in terms of catching the football, those two guys might be able to do some things. Wide receivers, Gates, as previously mentioned, Stephen Hill, Jeremy Curley, all caught the ball well, all made plays in the passing game. Undrafted free agent Ryan Spadola was out there basically on the first series, converted to third down. Undrafted free agent Zach Rogers had a touchdown. Even Ben Abumanu flew a little under the radar, but he led all receivers with 4 receptions for 60 yards. So, that's a position that everyone's kind of rightfully been concerned about, but, a bunch of young guys and a bunch of lesser-known guys, stepped up and played well in the preseason debut and kind of carried on a strong camp, particularly for guys like Gates and Hill, who've really been doing it every day up in Cortland. Beyond that, it was nice to see Sanchez not, curl up into the fetal position after that horrific interception. He came back and put together a nice drive. Geno Smith, I thought, threw the ball well, but he really didn't get the chance to do all that much. 2 of his drives were, kind of torpedoed by false start penalties. The Jets dialed up a deep ball for him. He kind of hesitated for it and scrambled, and that was actually the play he rolled his ankle on. He was 6 for 7. He was accurate. He showed good arm strength in the short to intermediate game. Hopefully this week he can really kind of air it out a little bit, and we see him really push the ball down the field a bit more. Defensively, the starting lineup, the starters played relatively well. Muhammad Wilkerson had a sack. Antoine Barnes forced a sack that Quentin Coples actually got credit for. We saw D. Milner with a nice pass break up in the end zone. Unfortunately, the second lineup had a couple breakdowns. Milner actually had a breakdown with the second team. Demario Davis was playing with the first team and second team, was beating coverages a couple times. And obviously that was frustrating to see how easily, Sean Hill was able to throw the ball up and down the field, and Jets kind of backup secondary and backup defensive line who wasn't really able to get after the quarterback. Offensively, it was disappointing to see the Jets struggle running the football so much. Obviously, they're beat up at running back right now. Chris Ivory, Joe McKnight, Mike Goodson were all not available, so Bilal Powell was forced into really extended work and could not get anything going. Either really could Chad Spann or John Griffin, who unfortunately got a season-ending leg injury and a horse collar tackle coming around the right end. But the Jets really weren't getting a great push in the run game. Steven Peterman, miscast as a starter at this point of his career, and it really looked like Brian Winters was starting to seize that job, and then he got banged up. Hopefully he's going to be back and be able to play this week. Even if he's not, really up to speed and ready to start by week 1, I think he'll overtake Peterman sooner rather than later. Wasn't a great night for Austin Howard. Was pushed around a little bit in both the run and the pass game. Willie Colon had a couple penalties, though he brought some nice physicality up front, but, kind of disappointing from the Jets. offensive line, and particularly their backup offensive line, which was a train wreck, something we had warned you about going into that game. There's really no depth. Vlad Dukas is not really a capable NFL player. Odebushi, this year's 5th-round draft pick, had a very tough time. He was, getting beat around the edge, getting beat in the run game. It was a difficult night. The Jets could really use another veteran tackle, to have off their bench. Very concerning to watch, how the pass rush particularly was ripping through that second offensive line. On the whole, hard to leave, 2 up or 2 down about that game. I thought, there were some positive things in there. I like some of the different matchups and play calling that Marty Morningway was bringing to the offense. I think he's going to be a major, major upgrade over Tony Sperano, who ran basically a peewee football caliber of offense. Morningway, I think, is going to draw some things up. They're going to help get people open and help the Jets move the ball a little more efficiently. So, we'll just have to see if they can, build some momentum going into week 2. I would expect, barring something surprising or a setback with his ankle, Geno Smith to probably start. Him and Sanchez are both going to get time with the starters, and obviously you want to see the Jets run the football a little more. Chris Ivory's expected to play and, push the ball down the field. And, they didn't score any touchdowns last preseason, as we all remember. I mean, they already got 2 on the board through 1 game, so let's hope they can maybe get 3 or 4 this week against the Jacksonville defense that, should be susceptible in some spots. And also, hopefully, they should be able to get after the quarterback a little bit. Obviously, the Jags offense is a, work in progress right now. So, we're going to dive into break, and then we'll be back with John Caputo to preview the game, see what he has to say on the Jacksonville end of things.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central Radio Network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
And we are back with our next guest. Very happy to have John Caputo of Bolt City Brigade covering the Jacksonville Jaguars. Couple caps now. We got Joe Caporoso. We got John Caputo. How you doing tonight, John?
I'm doing well, man. You can never have too many caps.
Can never have too many caps. I've been saying that my whole life. All right, so we got Jets, Jags, and MetLife this weekend. What are some of the early impressions and reactions coming out of Jacksonville's preseason debut last week?
Well, obviously, it wasn't the best debut. I think there were some good things, some bad things, and a lot of questions. We still just have a lot of questions with the team. I think the good. It looks like we've had a pretty good draft. And we've got some good young players that our new GM David Caldwell brought in. Ace Sanders is really, really looking good. So somebody for you guys to watch this weekend. Slot receiver that kind of got moving all around. He's looked good. Then you've got we're really looking forward to seeing Jonathan Cyprien this weekend. Our second round pick. We're looking forward to seeing him, the strong safety. He was banged up, didn't play last weekend, but he looked great in OTAs. The young secondary looks good. The defense looked pretty good in general. We got some good pressure, but I think obviously the offense, which has been another area where we've struggled the last couple of years, it's been rough, and it was rough again on Friday night, guys. It was not pretty to watch. We're still trying to figure out who's going to play quarterback. I think, that was kind of the ugliest part of everything.
Are most Jacksonville fans at this point ready to just cut their losses with Gabbard, or are most people still kind of holding out some type of hope for him?
I think most people are just realistic with it, guys. I think, we've seen it. In different circumstances, maybe it would have worked out for him differently. I don't know. He's had this is his third offensive coordinator in 3 years, 3 different head coaches. So it hasn't been the most, the most ideal situation for a young guy. He's still young too. So there is a segment, to answer your question, there's a segment of the fan base that is definitely, kind of holding on to it because he is so young, because of all those things that have gone wrong, that maybe the light bulb will come on. But, I think most of us are kind of realistic and we see, you see the product. That's what you see daily. You see the practice reports. For some of us that have been out there at a lot of the practices, you see it with your own eyes, and it's not looking like it's turning around right now. So, I think a lot of people are under the impression that our QB of the future isn't on the roster right now. I think it's somebody that the new regime is probably going to target in the next draft. And then Chad Henne's another guy who I think most of us are kind of, we're over the Chad Henne experiment. We'd rather just go with Gabbert this year, see what he's got one more time, and then just keep building for next year. It's sad to say the season's starting, but I think Jag fans at this point are realistic, and the team's done a good job of kind of laying those expectations out there and laying a plan that people can get behind, in the sense that, hey, this is going to take a little while. The roster was pretty void of talent when they took over. So, we'll see. I in the back of our minds, we'd love to see him come out and do a few good things this year, but I don't think anybody's holding their breath at this point.
What are the expectations for Denard Robinson on offense this year? Where do you expect to see him used mostly, and do you really think he's going to be, a major impact, playmaker for you guys offensively this season?
I think he's going to be, when you say, I don't think he's going to be featured regularly, but what he does offer is big playability. So I think he's going to get a lot of attention because of that. He may only get 15 to 20 snaps a game at the most, as we get going here. But all it takes is one or two of those for him to break off some big games. He had some really, really nice runs in our first game against Miami, and that's an impact, especially for kind of a mid to late round guy that you got. As far as his role, they've had him everywhere. They've had him. I'm sure you guys have read some of the reports. I mean, he's offensive weapon. They developed a new position for him, but he really has been. He's taking snaps in the at QB in the Wildcat. I personally really like him at running back. I think you can go back to some of his college tape, even when they put Devin Gardner in there and they had him kind of lining up in the backfield with Gardner. He flashes some really, really good vision and some really, really good cutback ability. And the thing about Denard that you really can't see until you're at the you're at the stadium in person and you're watching is just how fast he is. He's one of those guys who's a few people have commented he's a guy who's as fast as he needs to be, and he definitely is. That's been as advertised. So we're excited about him, but I think they're moving him around a lot. They're throwing a lot at him, and I think some of that might be just to kind of keep people on their toes, as far as game plan, make you game plan for him. But I think really his role depends on how much of that he picks up. And and how he's doing, because he has struggled a little bit in pass catching situations too. So, but we're definitely excited about him. I think, you talk about for a 5th round pick, the potential that he could bring is pretty cool.
One last question, then we'll let you get on your way. And I always got to keep tabs on my Division III receivers, although Mount Union was obviously much more of a powerhouse than Muhlenberg was, where I played. I keep hearing that Cecil Shorts is having a great camp, and obviously he was flashing, last year. Do you think he could? I mean, I know Blackman's still there, but do you think Shorts is talented enough to really be almost like a go-to receiver, even just a straight number one receiver?
I think he is, guys. I think Cecil. It's interesting with him, man. I remember his rookie year when he came out there and sitting at training camp and sitting at some of the practices. You could watch him, you knew there was something there, but he had such a curve, a learning curve. And he had a horrible wide receivers coach his rookie year, a guy who had never coached receivers before under Jack Del Rio. So that kind of set him back a little bit too. But you saw it. Like we all saw it at practice when the season came and there was nothing there. So I wasn't that surprised last year when he started flashing like he did. But as far as what to expect from him this year, if he can stay healthy, he's going to have a massive year. The guy is in incredible shape. He is so focused. They can't, until he got this little ding, which they're not sure if he's going to play on Saturday at this point. He just got a little calf strain, but they're being real cautious with him. But I think, honestly, they're excited that he got the cash, or they're happy that he got the cash in because they could not keep this guy off the field, guys. He was open on almost every route that he ran. He was catching. The coaches were talking about we got to slow him down. He's catching too many passes. He's getting too much work. So I think he's poised for a really, really big year if he can stay healthy. And imagine if we had a guy who, if we had a halfway decent quarterback throwing to him, I think he'd have an even bigger year. But definitely, if I had to pick somebody on the team that I'm confident that they're going to have a big year this year, I think he'd be the number one guy.
Yeah, he's going to be a fun one to watch this year. Him along with to see how they use Denard and see that defense come along under Gus Bradley. Thank you, thank you for taking the time for joining us. We're excited about Saturday. Should be a fun one out in MetLife. I'm sure the Boo Birds will be out bright and early for Mark Sanchez whenever he steps out of the tunnel. So it should be interesting.
Definitely.
Everybody, make sure to check John's site out over at boldcitybrigade.com and give him a follow on Twitter at boldcitycap. Again, happy to support another Cap, and thanks again for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Anytime. Have a good evening.
What up, Jets fans? This is Antoine Barnes, outside linebacker of the New York Jets. You're listening to Jet Central Radio. Hit me up on Twitter, Antoine Barnes 42. I'll see you.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
All right, that was John Caputo of Bold City Brigade. Thank you for taking the time for joining us along with Bart Hubbuch of the New York Post tonight. We're going to wrap things up. Obviously, as always, we have a full week of content at turnonthejets.com, gearing up for week 2 of the preseason. Today we had a little running back film breakdown by Dalvin Cesario. I also just published a short piece about the conspiracy theorists about the Jets quarterback battle. Please stop. We're 1 week into the preseason. Let's keep the hysteria to a minimum for at least until the regular season starts. Then we can get to that mode. But we'll be loaded with the rest of the week. Make sure you're staying with us. Follow the site at Turn on the Jets. We're also on Facebook at www.facebook.com/TurnOnTheJets as well. And we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.